off some of the lights. Apologize for that because we had some trouble seeing the screen on the last meeting. So, welcome, and for the first time, good evening, because this is the only one past 6 o'clock. My name is Janet Wheeler. I work for Turner & Townsend. I'm a senior project manager. I'm here with the Turner & Townsend team. For Oronoque Village Condo Association, we have Lori Freehill. Raise your hands. She's our associate project manager. We have Jordan Marone, who's our project executive, and conspicuously absent is my senior director, Scott Pinkney. He was here last week. So, I'm going to start this out. You are my last presentation group, unless, and of course, somebody adds another presentation to the list. I'm going to try to do this presentation as concisely as possible. We want to get you as much information as we can, go through the bits and pieces and some of the pieces of information, how we got to this point, what we're suggesting. Here's our agenda. Hopefully this will go quickly and it will give you enough time to ask any questions that may come up in your mind or that you have. I know some of you still have some of the take-home pieces, the take-home sheets. We will provide that to everybody as we go out the door. I noticed I get to see a lot of people's heads and foreheads because they're always looking at the takeout if we give it to you too early. I promise it is the exact same information that is in the presentation slides. So on that note, I just want to get started here and say that we're going to do this presentation, and the reason for the presentation is to give you the proposal that outlines the most cost-effective and the least disruptive course of action for the re-roofing for all of the residents. That's our intent and our goal today, to make sure that you have that information. One of the other kind of housekeeping items is just make sure everybody's got their cell phone off. So I'm not above calling out and saying, asking everybody if their ringtone is new, things to that sort. So, all right. So the first part of this is what are we doing? Why are we doing this? What are we asking for, and how did this come about? So it's all about protecting your homes and the future of what you want to live in, and how the value of your home is part and parcel of all of that. So we are protecting, again, the building envelope encompasses the roof. The building envelope, again, is outside siding, it's the windows, it's the foundation, and it's the roof. That's all common HOA property. But you guys have all the good stuff that's inside the building. And the roof protects all that. So that's one of the big values on that. And we're asking that we're going to put forth a vote on what we're proposing. That you look at the information and do the best you can and ask us questions, make sure that everything's settled in your mind before you make that response to the vote. So we're looking to achieve the following. We're looking to achieve protecting the unit values. We're looking to enhance safety of that roof, make sure that there's not any issues going forward. One of the big considerations is to preserve the insurance coverage for the HOA. This is above and beyond the insurance that you have for the interior of your homes. This is something that covers the whole HOA. It's a little bit of a sticky thing because there's really only 2 companies that provide insurance for condo associations of this size and in this area. They are getting incredibly more savvy. And they tend to look at roofs, and they look to see what the maintenance is doing. And with the age and things that are going on, they're getting a little bit more sharp penciled. We just don't want to have them drop, and then we have less options. And I apologize, I use the royal we. I am hired by Oronoque Village to do the pre-planning up until the assessment. We're not doing anything further than that until you say so. But I tend to use the words we because I think that I'm all part of this right at the moment. So apologies for that. The last portion on our line here is just sustaining the market appeal for sales or evaluations of the units as well. So our proposed goals for the re-roofing project is to re-roof all the buildings, 454 buildings encompass Orono Village Housing Association. There's 17 different types of buildings in that number, and there's 929 units encompassed within those buildings as well. The square footage for the roof is a little bit more than your square footage for just the floor plate because it's on an angle here and there. It's 1.7 million square feet. That has been confirmed. Those are the numbers that have been done by drone and report and those types of things. So we're making sure that we've got all that information and that we'll be able to extrapolate that into the costs. So the costs for the roofing for the project is being proposed to be allocated by class, which essentially means that they're going to be allocated by the size of the units. The class, we do have a slide for the class. The class is coming up, so when we get into the numbers and the cost things, we'll be able to tell you that if anybody has any questions on what that is. And again, the goal of the project is to be the most cost efficient with the least amount of disruption to the residents as possible. So there's things on either side of the proposed that we're going to show you that it could be done quicker, it could be done longer, and it also could be much more disruptive for longer times and cost a lot more. So, I think, and we are, this hasn't been laid out yet, but the idea is that the roofing would be scheduled by what's imminently needed. I'm sure you're all aware that there's been roof studies and there's been evaluations of the roofs. There's about 70% of the roofs are in the first two, the 1 to 2 category, which means they really need to get done. They're behind the 8 ball, they really need to have some work done to them. They're in danger of leaking or having other problems. And we would definitely put those to the front to make sure that those be taken care of in as timely a fashion as possible. But along with that efficiency of roofing installations, we'd also need to look at how that works through the community to make sure that we're taking into account any common sense, popping in one that maybe is not a 2 but a 3 to make sure that you don't get disrupted numerous times. So we're also suggesting that there be strong oversight of the project, making sure that the residents are, first right here, the residents are in favor of getting this done, and that you have a educated and informed decision for your assessment, as well as communications on how it gets laid out, how much planning goes into it, making sure that the people who are next in line are reminded, and then also taking care of making sure they're touched base when the roofing is going on and followed up. So that's kind of the role, is we're going to plan it all out, and then before it happens, month, 6 weeks, whatever that is, make sure everybody knows you're on the next for this one, and then just before it happens, we would contact again, make sure. So this is kind of the equation for all of those oversight and communications. So why do we need to do this project now? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The roofs are at or after their useful life. The last time there was any roofing done on a whole roof basis was in 1998. And if you do the math, that means they're all 27 years old. So, but here's the caveat, that in 1998, they only got 57% of the roofs done. They didn't do them all, which means that the best ones that were done in 1998 are 27 years old. The remainder are older than that. So therein implies the problems and the issues that have been having. There's been a lot of increased maintenance requests and leaks in the past 5 years. So you can, as you look at the maintenance records, you can see the escalation of these problems are starting to go up towards a peak. And they did do a roof study. Some of this is done by drone overhead, also by taking a known contractor and having them evaluate specific roofs within the complex. So what that study revealed was that 70% of the roofs show significant wear, and they have active leaks. that are needing frequent patching. So keep in mind that word patching. To my knowledge, and from what I've heard from our friends in the executive team as well as the roof replacement project team, there has been no total roof replacement unless it was a fire in the building. I think there's a couple of fires over the past 10, 15 years. That's when they would have replaced the whole roof. But if you've got a leak and they're replacing some roofing, they're patching it. They're doing it in sections. And what that does is you weave it from the new into the old, and that intersection is not a long-term solution. So again, there's another line item here that the insurance are, it's after 6, I apologize. The insurance companies are tightening their belts and the requirements on roof conditions and age. They're getting much more savvy. They're asking those questions. They're making HOAs prove things, and it's definitely doing a proactive replacement helps that process, gives them a little sense of security, and helps us keep the HOA insurance in place. So the other part of why now is material and labor costs. They never go down. Historically, in the last 15 years, we've never seen anything go down. But material costs will go up every year. Labor costs, everybody wants a raise, those go up every year. So delaying it and pushing it out, even if we delay it from now, when we do 3 years in the future, is still going to cost more than what we're proposing at this point. So how was the proposal all developed? So it started with the roof replacement project team, and I absolutely hate acronyms, so I'm not going to repeat that because I'll mess it up. This was actually the team we came to know, and we've got a lot of our information from to make evaluations and recommendations, is made up of staff and a 17-member resident member team. And they did a lot of work. They did a lot of detailed information. They posted that information. This has been going on for the better part of a year. They recommended engaging a project management team, and we're here, so that obviously was something that I think was well needed. But what else happened was they've looked at materials. They've evaluated 5 different manufacturers' materials, looked at what was been used in the complex before. They also put out a request proposal, or an RFP, for contractors. And that proposal went out to 8 different roofing contractors. That 8 made up companies that have worked on site, companies that were recommended through distributors or other contractors. And the last one was actually something that Turner Townsend had recommended, was a partner of ours that we thought, they're local, they're in the southern Connecticut area, we could see if they'll give us a good price too. So there's 8 separate prices that came in for the roofing replacement. That RFP included, you have to have this insurance, you have to make sure that you're using the correct materials, we were looking for a warranty, we want to make sure you're going to work to the hours that our residents are expecting, you're not going to be here in the middle of the night in the early morning. So it was very comprehensive. I was very happy to see it. Again, I was not party to making that RFP, but the staff here did a wonderful job. It gave us a lot of information that we could evaluate these 8 contractors on, not just price, because price is only one portion of it. We all want the lowest cost. That's, again, nobody wants to take money out of their pocket if they don't have to. But we need to make sure they have that manpower. We need to make sure they have all their insurances, their insurance, their equipment, that there's nothing that's going to come back to the association or the owners and have any impact on them above and beyond what we're asking them to do. So let's go. So this is a slide just to show the materials. GAF ended up being the recommended manufacturing material. There is GAF material on the roofs now. This is a very well-known company. It's one of the main roofing material industry leaders here in the US. You can get them pretty much anywhere. So GAF has been in business, I had to Google it. They've been in business since 1886. I'm not going to do the math because it's too late in the day. But they've been doing this for a very long time. They have 4 different locations within the US that they manufacture shingle materials, so that if one happens to burn to the ground, they're very safe, we can get it someplace else. They also will be, they've offered to work with us on quantities and making sure all that stuff is right. They have a very good warranty process. So they actually come out and look at the roof, make sure it's right, make sure it's on there, that there will be no problems, but then they back it up. And they say, if anything goes wrong for the materials, within 20 years we'll replace it, no questions asked. If something goes wrong with the warranty, on the workmanship, if your contractor is no longer able to do it, we will find somebody who's qualified to come out and do it, and that comes out for 10 years. So it's a very good warranty that is also rolled into the project. And finally, what the roof replacement project team did was they asked the question on some of the issues for the ice damming and the ventilation within some of the buildings. 47% of the buildings have ice damming issues, and the majority of those are, again, it's probably a north facing, but they could be, it's the Emerson and the Thoreau buildings. And there's been some work done on some of them. They've actually added onto the roof to create an extended soffit. What that does is it allows air to get into the attic space, and that air is what gets rid of the ice damming. This engineering group, Falcon Group, had another idea. They actually had it's called a DCI Smart Vent. It's part of a roofing. It goes underneath the roofing material. It's on the roof deck. It's less intrusive, takes less product and material, and it costs less. This is where the industry is going. So GAF has their version of it. Owens Corning has their version of it. Smart Vent is the originator of it. So we are going to try to roll some of that in there and give that a try to make sure that we can get that cost benefit to everybody as we move forward. So here's the final recommendations for the contractor. The contractor that gave us the best cost and was verified that could do the work, was willing to do the work, had all the insurances. Again, this is all that, we call it bid leveling, so that everybody's on a level playing field, is MSK Solutions. They are local, they're out of Bridgeport. We check their references. We get nothing but great things to hear from their distributors. We get nothing but great things to hear from other contractors that hire them to do roofing because they can do it better than they can. So there was, again, an 8 contractor process to get the costing in. We made sure everybody had the thing. The roof replacement team also suggested we get them in here and we interview them. So they did come in, they spoke to the group. We drilled them on how are you going to get this done? How many people are you going to put up on the roof? How long does it take you to do a roof? How far can you turn it around? How much disruption are we going to do? What are you doing to our landscaping? How do you take the trash off? All these things got answered. They answered them very well. They're very knowledgeable. So I can say, as Turner & Townsend, as the person who is putting them through their steps and their hoops here, that I feel confident that they can do the work. So they are GAF certified. They are one of those contractors that is able to do that GAF certification, get us that warranty, and they're locally based in Connecticut. So they're very, it was a good fit, and that's who we're suggesting at this point. The project management, which was again suggested by the roof replacement project team, ended up being ourselves, Turner & Townsend, after they went to 5 different firms. You'll hear stories about the fact that I got interviewed while I was on vacation in Canada. I obviously worked out because they said, yes, it's a great idea that you guys can come and help us, give us some insight. What Turner & Townsend does as project management and oversight is to help people put all the puzzle pieces together, make sure that what they're doing is made easier, but all the finance, all of those decisions and such still rest with you and the executive team. So we don't hold any monies, we don't do any of that, we just make sure the budgets line up, we just make sure that all the things are doing, we make sure the contractor shows up on time, he does the roofs that he's supposed to do, that's got the right color, all that good stuff. So that is what we do, which creates minimal impact to the village. And Our services would be funded by the common charges, which is part of the reserve right now. Just because I know we're going to get an answer, a question on this. Our fees are again coming out of that common fees reserve, and that common fees reserve, what's left, is also coming off the top of the project. So if we were going to get paid through the full project, we'd have more reserves. It equals out to the same number at the end of the day. Okay. So here's what they looked at for different project options. Option 1 is a 3-year project to complete all the roofs. Given all of the RFP and the costs that we've evaluated, that cost is $9,589,692. That gets everything done. And I do have a slide for where we got to that number. Option 2 is a 5-year plan, which would spread out all of the buildings over 5 full years. Okay, so instead of 150 per year, roughly, you would do less than 100 per year. And what we found is, again, with escalation of labor and materials and some other counting things, that the total for 5 years, using our building numbers that we've bid out, would be $13,332,695. So that's an upcharge for 2 more years added on to that 3 of $3,743,014. Going to option 3, which is a 7-year plan. This would be completed over 7 years. Again, less roofs being done per year. Same type of thing, escalation for materials and labor as it kind of creeps up. Like as I said, it never gets lower. If we really get lucky, get a couple of years that it stays the same, but I haven't seen that in such a long time anyways. So the 7-year option 3 total estimated is at $16,591,061. And that is an upcharge from the 3-year plan of roughly $7 million. So the key considerations when looking at these 3 options are the incentives, again, materials and labor escalation. The longer timelines also mean more disruption because roofing is not a quiet sport. They're up there, they crawl over the roof, they're ripping things off. And we did quantify this with the contractor, what do you do? And they get up on the roof, they start taking the old stuff off, they check the plywood underneath. In the meantime, they're also setting up slides so that all the materials come off, they don't hurt the landscaping. They have a truck that lifts itself up and they can put the things straight into it so they're not dumping dumpsters all over the place. And then they work through all this, they replace the plywood if it needs to be replaced, they get all the accessories, they get the shingles back on and then start putting it back on. They've told us they can do a typical building here in Roanoke Village, which is roughly around 4,000 to 4,500 square feet of roof in 1.5 days, which is very quick. Now, 3-year plan, we'd be looking to do a couple of crews because we're looking at somewhere around 5 or 6 buildings per week and it has to be during good weather because weather permitting, they get up there, they don't want to do anything in the rain because it's dangerous to them and they have some temperature requirements as well. So, those are the key considerations. Those are the things that we've been looking at. How fast can it get done? What is fast and too fast? How much disruption? Because again, it's not a quiet sport. You can hear it going on. But we're talking about options too of maybe doing some in the south and then flipping over to the north so that there's quiet times for residents going forward. So this is just a graph showing those costs again. You'll notice in the lower left is the cost in 1998. Don't you wish we could go back in 1998? We could use those costs, that would be wonderful. But keep in mind, that cost only did 57% of the roofs. They didn't do the rest. So those are the ones that are older and having more problems. Keep going. So, what is being recommended? Option number 1 for 3 years is being recommended. Again, the total project cost, $9,589,000. 589,692. I'm gonna wake up for the next 3 weeks and have that number in my brain from talking about it. But the why of this is the lowest overall cost to the community. It minimizes the cost escalation, because the more you push it out, the more it costs to you. We don't expect it to get better. And the commitments to pricing and performance, we've clarified those. We know that those are in place, hoping to get that all put together. And then this would also reduce maintenance requirements. Again, we're planning to hopefully get to those most imminent roofs that need that work. It's going to cut down on the leaks. It's going to cut down on maintenance requests and roll that all in. It's also going to help with the insurance coverage and make sure that they are on board. Just incepting or starting up a roofing project like this will get them happy to hear it and be willing to write those policies and going forward. And again, 3 years, much less disruptive than 5, much less disruptive than 7, and God knows less disruptive than 10. So this is how we got there. And I mentioned this a little bit before. So construction costs, this is what we got from our contractor. This is all of their labor, their materials, their oversight, their demolition, the dumpsters, their equipment, their safety protocols, because these guys have to have all their safety equipment. We don't want anything happening to anybody. All of that is rolled into that $8,970,342 number. In addition to that, I pulled out some other things that are typical to construction costs. The warranty inspections, that's GAF. They actually have their own private person come out and inspect the work, make sure it's correct. Because again, they're warrantying this. They're actually going to be back out here. They want to make sure that it's as good as they can get it. And it goes by a square footage of how much roofing is put on it. So that cost is in there as well. The town of Stratford is requiring roofing permits. They are being very accommodating, the fact that they don't want to do all the paperwork for 454 buildings. So they've been working with our maintenance director, and hopefully we'll be getting those in 2 separate roofing permits, one for north, one for south. But again, the cost is required. Another portion of construction, specifically for this kind of work, is a performance bond. And this is from the contractor for the contractor. Should anything happen and they are not able to continue the work that they're doing, they get 4 months into it, both owners win the lottery, they're gone, nobody's here. That performance bond can be put into effect, and what it will do is the insurance company will pay the difference to get us to the next contractor. We will not lose any ground, and it just goes forward. So that is an insurance for Orono Village to make sure that all of these projects get done. One of the things that's typical to construction, again, is inflation. We talked a little bit about escalation, but also contingency. You don't know what you're getting into until you pull the roofing shingles off. So we have contingency in there for how much plywood we need. We've got contingency in there for maybe some exterior siding, some flashing. If anybody, so to be perfectly clear, there is no gutters within the roofing project. But if there's issues and people find problems, we're going to address those as we go forward. This contingency is made for that fund to do that. It also could be landscaping. If there's a tree that needs to be cut back because it's going to be impacting a new roof, we don't want it to hurt the new roof. Anything above and beyond. They are planning to protect all the landscaping as they, what's the word I want to use, de-shingle. And they also will do a magnetic pickup to make sure that there's no nails or anything metal that's left over after their demolition and that kind of thing. So that brings us to a total project cost, so all this construction portion, of $10,774,542. But there is a reserve, and those reserves are being proposed to be used and added as a debit. So that brings us down to a subtotal of $9,589,692. So that's where we got to that. Now, just because, again, done this 5 other times, somebody always asks a question. Turner & Townsend's fees are coming out of the reserve. If our fees were not, that reserve contribution would go up. our fees would get added, and the same bottom line would be the same bottom line for the construction, okay? Just full disclosure. All right, here's the one everybody's waiting for. So these are the proposed unit owner costs. It goes by class. The classes are on the bottom. These are all by the different buildings. And there's an option to pay once a month over 36 months. This would be added on top of the HOA fees. Or a total payment of the roof assessment at one time. But I would like to note that there is no percentage of interest. There's no upcharge. Those costs, if you divide it by 36, are exactly what the monthly charge is. Okay, so there's really no trick to those numbers whatsoever. Okay. Then that will be in the handout, just so everybody knows, and you don't have to scribble to write it down or take pictures. So what's next? Next steps. So this is our last of 6 meetings to present to the residents. Tomorrow, GAF is going to be here at 5 o'clock. They're going to bring materials. They'll have some presentation stuff. They'll be able to come and talk to them and make sure that they seem as stand-up as I think they are. I would highly suggest it if anybody has any ideas or anybody wants to see what that roofing materials are not glamorous. So if you have other things to do, nobody will be worried if you don't be here, but they are going to be here for you if you want to see it. So the next step is to have the Oronoque Village Condo Association Board recommend the proposal that's been put forth to go to an assessment vote. They are meeting next on October 28th, and what that means is for the assessment vote, the only way it passes if you get 50% plus 1 to vote yes. Okay, so that's the criteria. There is a suggestion, and we're the board and the executive are going to suggest using Election Buddy, which is a new system. It's cloud-based, and we do have a slide for that. But I did just want, before we run over to that, the next step and the last step before we get into the full project is the work would not commence until the spring of 2026. I believe it was asked before that if we did pass the vote that the assessment charges would start in January of 2026, just so everybody knows what that is. And we do have reference materials. Again, there's a handout. I'm pretty sure we have plenty for today. And all of these things will be put up on the OV website. So we're compiling questions that get asked and answers so that all of that stuff can be done and you can reference it. I don't retain anything as I walk out the door, so hopefully this stuff will be very handy for you. So if you do vote yes, this is what it means. You're going to protect your unit costs. Again, making sure that building envelope is secure and that you're not going to have any issues into the interior, which is your haven and your home. Enhancing the safety of the buildings, making sure there's no issues there. Preserving that insurance coverage for the HOA, and then also making sure the market value of the units and even the village as a whole is in place. So, okay, so this is the Election Buddy information. Election Buddy is cloud-based, and you can use it on your phone, you can use it by a home computer, you can actually have a kiosk here, so somebody could walk up and use it here if they don't want to do it at their home. And if those things, if somebody is not technology-based, there's also a way to do it by postcard and to have people do a neighbor-to-neighbor assistance for anybody who would need to vote. Now, the cloud-based system does roll up, and because it's based on I want to say arbitrary, it's basically you get a little number for your address, your unit. It doesn't have your name. It's not that exact address, so it is confidential. But it will tell the executive committee and the board who has voted. And keep in mind, there'll be 1 vote per unit. But again, it keeps it confidential. It allows people to find out how many people have voted so that we can do a little bit more outreach, make sure that everybody gets their voice heard. and can provide the information that whether or not this is something you want to get done. So, I think that's about it for my concise and rambling discussion. I would ask again, if anybody's been here for a second time, that you just let the people who are here for